Should have done this first. Again, good morning. Today, with ringing of our peace bowl, we affirm our collective hope for peace, not only here in Prescott and in Arizona, in the United States, but certainly around the world. We acknowledge that these lands here in Prescott that we love are the ancestral lands of the Yavapai people. Today's service has a few surprises in it. It's not Day of the Dead, but kind of like trick or treat type things, I guess. The minister that was, or the person who was going to lead today's service, Ellen Bashar, was involved in an automobile accident in Texas and had head injuries that required her hospitalization. And I've learned that from Fred that she is out of the hospital now and recovering, but certainly not up to doing a service today. So she will be doing a service someday in the future. On short order, the Reverend Becky Gunn agreed to do today's service. And thank you very much for that. She's a retired UU minister who served congregations in Albany, New York, Boulder, Colorado, and Bangor, Maine. She moved to Prescott 8 years ago and found a home here and is very involved with the AAUW, American Association of University Women, of which she is the current state president. She's involved with OLLI, O-L-L-I, where she is on the governing council, curriculum committee, and facilitates classes. And of course, she's got to be involved with local political activity. She loves providing the occasional Sunday service at Granite Peak, and we are very thankful and pleased that she is with us today. So, today's service involves a Day of the Dead, and we're going to have a video from the National Geographic Society talking a little bit about the Day of the Dead. That was interesting. Good morning again, and welcome to Granite Peak Unitarian Universalist Congregation here in Prescott, Arizona. I am Jack Wood, your worship associate for today. We extend a warm welcome to all of you. We're glad that you're able to be here and join us, and that hopefully everybody's in good health. This is the mission statement of our congregation. We are a compassionate spiritual community that celebrates diversity, nurtures the personal and spiritual growth of all ages, shares our gifts, promotes justice for all, and serves the world we live in. Please join us after today's service for coffee and socializing in small groups in Davis Hall. If you're viewing the service on Zoom, you can join us in the breakout rooms after the service. If you're joining us for the first time, please check our website at prescottuu.org for more information about us. And if you're here in person, there'll be time at the end of the service to introduce yourself, if you're brave enough in the sanctuary here, but you probably will be. And then please stay and chat with a member or two. There are refreshments in Davis Hall across the foyer to enjoy after the service. We thank our technology assistant, Martin, for being here today and helping put this together, and all of our Sunday morning volunteers. And this is the audience participation part. I want you to all to check your cell phones and make sure they are set on quiet. Please. In addition to the announcements that we're showing on the screen before the service, you can read about other things happening at Granite Peak in the weekly Peak newsletter, on our website, in Reverend Patty's videos, and we also have some printed copies of the announcements at the welcome table. One of the things that's happening right now is our online auction, and online auction items should be dropped off at Granite Peak. Done, finished? Somebody gave me misinformation. Pickup? Is pickup important? All right. Disregard the first part of my statement. Online pickup date this Wednesday, November 1st, between noon and 4 p.m. Is that okay? All right, good. Okay. Sandra Palacios is our faith development coordinator and teaches ages 5 and older across the street at our faith development building. We have a nursery in this building for kids under 5. And let's see. We are going to do our chalice lighting. And I have my assistant, Fred, coming up to do that with me. And we have some special words for the chalice lighting today from Reverend Becky. We light this chalice to honor our ancestors, those who have gone before us. We light this chalice to recognize the abundance of gifts given to us by our ancestors, their wisdom, their love, their tenacity, their whole lives. We light this chalice to remember them and to learn from them. We light this chalice to celebrate them. And Reverend Becky.
Fall is my favorite season. It's a season where we can rejoice in the glory of the trees and a full array of color. Somehow the light changes. It feels ethereal at times. It is a space and time where we tend to reflect. The evenings come earlier. The chill, as in this morning, is in the air. And sometimes we reflect on our mortality. We live, we die. That is the reality. We wonder if we have lived fully and meaningfully. We wonder about those we have lost. Yet I think in this liminal time, the time between seasons, the times of transition, that we often feel the presence of those who have gone before. Each of us has differing beliefs about death. Is death the end? I don't know. But I do know that the family and friends I have lost still live on in memory and in the impact that they had on me. Today we will be speaking of death, but even more, we will be listening for the blessed reverberations of the lives of those we remember. In that time of listening, I also hope that we acknowledge and celebrate life itself and the abundance of gifts we have received during our lives. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn this morning is Come Sing a Song With Me, and we have a video that will give us the words. So stand as you're willing and able and help us sing this song. Thank you. We are a covenantal community. So I ask that we repeat the words that are on the screen. Our covenant. Love is a doctrine of this congregation the quest for truth its sacrament, and service its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant together. This is a time in our beloved community when we silently acknowledge our joys and sorrows. This morning, I would like to call into our awareness two events where we need to hold people in our hearts. The first is the senseless shooting in Lewiston, Maine, which evokes horror and yet a sense of yet again. Let us send our heartfelt concerns and love to those who have lost loved ones and those who were injured. The second event is in Israel and Gaza. We have entered into a war where thousands of people have already died. Whether you support Israelis or Palestinians, let us send our love to those who are affected by this war. Let us pray for humanitarian sensibility and for peace. If there is an event which moves you to joy or concern or hope or gratitude, I invite you to come forward silently and drop a pebble from this dish into our communal water as an affirmation of our connection to one another. May our joys and concerns surrounded by the healing water of our beloved community be acknowledged here today. So may it be. Please sing these words of comfort. I'm not a good singer, so will somebody start it out, please? Walking with you, walking with you is thy prayer. Twice. Walking, walking with you, walking with you is our prayer.
As we prepare to take the offering this morning, let us embrace the feeling of connection and community that we have when we gather here each week. Let us remember that this congregation and its programs are supported by your generosity. We also give back to the greater community through our seeds of support. This month's recipient is Granite Dells Preservation Foundation, a very worthy organization. You can read about them in your order of service. To give online, if you're with our Zoom crowd today, the link is available in the chat, or you can also go to the website. Please enjoy the offertory music. As we started this offertory, I realized that my worship team boss, Suki Jones, wanted me to introduce that video, La Llorona. So I could do that now, but I also realized if I did that, we would have to take the collection again. So we won't do that today. Trick or treat. We acknowledge the generosity of spirit expressed through this offering. What is given in love is received in gratitude. Blessed be.
This is a poem by Nancy Wood from her collection called Spirit Walker. It is entitled, The Earth Called to My Friend. The earth called to my friend, and he went deep into the earth root from which he came, down into Blue Lake where our ancestors dwell, deep into the heart of the yellow corn maiden, to a place of beauty and light. I watched the sky for a long time, and then I saw a cloud in the shape of my friend, riding a fine white horse with wings so big they blotted out the sun, making shadows across my withered fields of corn. I called to my friend and I asked him if he was happy and if he knew more now than when he left. I called out his name and blessed him with an eagle feather, dancing in his behalf the wild old dances of our youth. Goodbye, my friend, I said, watching the clouds crumble into little pillows that fell as rain into the dryness of my fields. I invite you into a short period of silence where you can reflect on those who have been called to the earth. What memories do you have of them? Do you see them in the clouds? Do your memories bring them alive to you? The summer when I was 10 years old, I moved to Logan, Utah, where I stayed with my grandmother, Peterson, until my parents moved there as well. This is the summer when my great aunt Emma died, a sister-in-law to my grandmother. I had never met Aunt Emma, but Grandma insisted that we go to the viewing and the funeral in Malad, which is a small town in southern Idaho. I had never seen a dead person before. Actually, I'd probably never even thought of death before. Emma was relatively young, probably in her early 50s, but laying there in a simple wood casket on the side table of her dining room, dressed in white, I felt she had to have been very, very old. She looked waxen and, quite frankly, unreal. My grandmother walked me over to her and told me to kiss her cheek. I didn't understand why, but I was required to do so. After kissing her, I ran out of the house where I met my cousin Daryl. He was a year older than me, and it was his mother who was in the casket. He wanted to play, so we did, out there on his front lawn. That was my introduction to death. In many ways, it was impersonal. And as I said earlier, it felt unreal. A few years later, I remember laying flowers on Aunt Emma's grave on Memorial Day. My grandmother celebrated all of her departed family on Memorial Day every year by going around to the various cemeteries with a scrub brush and soap and lawn clippers to spruce up their resting places. I went with her to help her out. We also had huge washing tubs. You know those big old washing tubs that we used to have? They were filled with flowers that she had grown in her garden for this specific time of year. And then we had some old juice cans, and we put foil around those juice cans. And we filled them with flowers, and they fit in the graveside receptacles perfectly. We left early in the morning on Saturdays and Sundays of Memorial Day weekend. We drove all around northern Utah and southern Idaho. And while we did so, my grandmother told me stories about each and every one of them, and they became real to me. It was not death that we celebrated, but rather it was her family and mine, and I learned about their gifts of life. I thought of death differently after these weekends of family lore. Yes, they were no longer physically here, but they had an impact on me, on my grandmother, and on their families and on their communities. They had a presence and a lasting influence. I think we live in a culture where death is hidden or denied, where we don't talk about it, where we don't even allow people time to grieve. Perhaps there are times when we recognize the catastrophes of death, called mass shootings, like the one in Maine this past week. My heart wept this week. The reality of death was so brutal. There was no time to prepare, no time to say goodbye. How do we celebrate their lives? How will we honor them in the future? Will we just think of them as victims? Or will we consider their abundance gifts to us? After a person has died, we may feel regret. We didn't tell him, her, or they that we loved them enough, that we forgave them, or even ask forgiveness for ourselves? How do we manage these regrets? My sense is that we can actually tell them that we love them, that we forgive them, that we ask for forgiveness. It's a way of celebrating their lives. I'm not proposing a seance, unless, of course, you believe in that, and then that's okay. But I actually have conversations with my mother, albeit they are one-sided conversations. She's been gone for 26 years now. She and I didn't always have the best relationship. She was an alcoholic, a functional one, but who changed when she drank into a belligerent woman and was self-destructive. I interceded in 2 suicide attempts. When sober, she was an incredibly intelligent, capable, articulate, caring, and likable woman. On her deathbed, she told me that she had a child out of wedlock and never saw her daughter. And her parents told her that she was worthless and a slut. She carried that message her entire life. That was why she drank. That was why she was self-destructive. I had not known that before. And I never had a chance to develop a true, deeper relationship with her after understanding this. I'm sure this may be true for some of you, that you didn't really know your parents, and for whatever reason, and perhaps, just perhaps, you didn't treat them with respect. I know I hadn't understood my mother, and I also know that I had not treated my mother with respect, particularly when she was drunk. But I have worked very diligently since to honor her, to celebrate her with respect. One of those ways is having conversations with her. Some of you may think this is a bit weird, but I can feel her presence and her impact on my life much more today than when she was alive. It is palpable. I don't know if she can hear me or if she's aware, but her spirit lives on in me. That, to me, is one way to celebrate her life and her abundant gifts to me. Part of our celebration today relating to death is the recognition of Dia de los Muertos. And by the way, forgive my Spanish if I mispronounce things. This holiday originated hundreds of years ago with the Aztecs, and now in what is now Mexico. The Aztecs saw death as part of the life and believed that at the end of the world, everyone would be born again. They honored the spirits of the dead and invited them to visit on certain days of the year. And today we're celebrating one of those days. Now, many people celebrate it on Halloween, but then there are those who celebrate it on All-Souls Day, the next day, the November 1st or November 2nd. Often part of family celebrations of Dia de los Muertos is the creation of an altar or ofrenda, often colorful and filled with meaningful items. Marigolds are often present, skulls as well, food like tamales or pan de muertos, a sweet bread made solely for this holiday. They also place photos and mementos on the ofrenda. Now, we have a couple, three actually, of altars, ofrendas here today. And there are many pictures that have been placed on this altar in memory of people. I placed one there myself this morning of my mother. Marigolds have a special meaning for those celebrating Dia de los Muertos. As part of the celebration, it is expected that those who have died will return to be with those who are celebrating. The question is, how do they find their way back to their families? Well, one way is the creation of arches and pathways that have marigolds in them. That there is a belief that the unique odor or smell of the marigolds help the dead find their families. Now, families not only decorate their ofrendas with marigolds, but they take petals from the marigolds and they create paths with those petals. And this way, those who have died will find the graveyards and the picnic where the family is celebrating. One of the many symbols of this holiday are also skulls. They represent the individuals who have died. Sometimes, if a person wishes, they can inscribe on a large sugar skull poetry or odes to the individuals that they are missing. The skulls with poetry inscribed on them are called calaveras, as is the poetry that is on the skull. And those skulls without inscriptions are called calacas. That one I don't know how to pronounce. In part of Mexico, there is something special that happens every year near the time of Dia de los Muertos. In the hills of the Sierra Madre, above a village called Anguengueo, in the millions of monarch butterflies return to these remote hills to winter. The climate, at least it has been in the past, I'm not sure now, was just right for these butterflies, not too cold and not too warm. The ancient natives, the Purepecha, believed that souls did not die, but continued to live in Mitian, a place for spirits to rest until the day they could return to their homes to visit their relatives. Over time, the Mexicans who lived in Anguenigueo came to believe that these butterflies are the souls of the departed returning to the earth for their annual visit. What a wonderful belief. Just imagine all those souls, all those butterflies. I think of Dia de los Muertos as a celebration of life as much as death. As we celebrate this day, we hold those we have loved in our hearts and remember the good times that we spent with them. We often tell stories about them. At Ollie, I happen to teach a memoir writing class. And one of the things that often happens in this class is that people will write stories about their loved ones who have passed. And it is a very, very powerful experience for them and for those of us who hear those stories. Our memories, our stories bring those people back to life. We acknowledge their abundance, their presence. We all have people who have shared their wisdom, their love, their joys, their sorrows, their grief with us. Holidays like Dia de los Muertos and Memorial Day, or simply the anniversary of a death, remind us of the impact that these individuals had on our lives. I want you to participate in this today. What I'd like to suggest is that we take a few moments to remember people who are special in our lives who have died. Please, I would ask you to stand one by one as you are able and call out the name of a person that you are holding in your heart today. And then, if you can, say one word that best describes them. So I'll model that by saying Mary Eliza Price. Strength. Thank you so very much for sharing. We all grieve the loss of those we love, but they do live on, at least in our memories and in our stories. So be it. Amen. Our closing hymn is Wo Yeah. Please rise as you're willing and able and join us in singing this song. My words today may have felt minimizing. Perhaps I may not have acknowledged the emptiness and loneliness of losing someone you have loved and your grief. I want you to know that you are not alone in your grief and pain. In this community, we walk together. Howard Thurman said it best. I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of your heart finds echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you the burden of your pain. But I can but offer what my love does give, the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand, the silent, storm-swept barrenness of so great a loss. This I do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path you may not walk alone. Let us walk together today, grieving, yet celebrating those we have lost. Amen. Namaste. Blessed be. Go in peace and return again in love.
I want to thank all of you for being here today for this exceptional service. I want to thank Reverend Becky Gunn for being with us today. We're going to extinguish this chalice. With the extinguishing of our chalice, our worship time has ended, and now our service begins. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you. I now invite you to take as much time as you wish to visit with your friends and visitors online or here in person. And if there's anybody who's visiting for the first time or maybe the second time who would like to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so at this point. I guess we all know each other. So let's go forward. Oh, we do have one. Second time. Oh, well, I think we know her. Thank you. Welcome. Okay. The service is ended.